That's how you start a show. I like that. I love that intro. It never gets old. Do inmates deserve to be humanized? Welcome to another episode of Jump Off Live. I'm yours truly, Jeff A. Smith, and I'm joined by JD and Johnny Dangerous. As you're watching the show, please be sure to like the video and subscribe to our channel. Also, you can check us out on Zingo TV, channels 249 and 250. And if you're on the go, you can find us on your favorite podcast streaming app. So without further ado, Johnny Dangerous is going to kick us off.
What's up? What's up, everybody? Okay, we're gonna dive right into it, y'all. So, a Wisconsin sheriff says those in jail will be called residents, not inmates, out of respect for humanity. A Wisconsin jail will no longer call people held there inmates out of respect. The Dane County Jail will call anyone incarcerated there a resident to humanize and respect them. This proactive approach to our criminal justice reform is going to allow us to move towards a 21st century policing mindset in which we treat everyone within our community with dignity, respect, and humanity, says Dane County Sheriff Calvin Barrett. This was on Monday, y'all. When we looked at this article, it definitely grasped our attention. I want to say this, first of all. If you were born on this planet, you are a human, right? No matter how you look or where you come from. And you do deserve some level of respect behind that. But I think this is a very controversial topic as it relates to giving inmates the respect to call them residents and not inmates. I wonder how it all came about. Like what brought this whole thing to a head to where the sheriffs went on ahead and said, hey, we're going to respect these inmates and we're going to call them residents. Somebody had to blow the whistle, I guess. Somebody or somebodies had to speak up on behalf of all the residents there. Obviously, man, there's a lot of people that are locked up for whatever reason. Some people are innocent. Some people are guilty. Nonetheless, we're all human. So I can respect that. But really, out of all the different things that residents could have fought for, what made them say, hey, I have the right to be called a resident and not an inmate? Fellas, what is your take on this?
I'll go first. I think this is an offshoot of there's been obviously a lot of debate around prison reform over the last several years in the wake of, the people of color have been, treated negatively proportionate to white people in the prison system. There's been so many different injustices that have been called out as it relates to that. And there's been a much more of a concerted effort to have prison reform, like I said, over recent years. So I think this is probably maybe like I said, an offshoot of just focusing more on prison reform. This isn't necessarily a fundamental change. It's a name change, with how you are, how they're going to be categorized and called residents as opposed to inmates. But it's definitely interesting. I feel like things do need to change in prisons. I feel like a lot of the things that are going on and have been going on for a number of years have not, the systems in place have not adequately rehabilitated said prisoners or inmates or residents, whatever you want to call them. So I think kind of shaking things up and changing things and treating them, more humanely, starting off with steps like this would hopefully move things in the right direction. I mean, they say that the goal of prison is to reform folks. So the ones who are fortunate enough to come out should be better off than they did when they went into prison. So I do hope this is not just the only thing that they do, but I hope this is a first step in a series of events and fundamental changes that lead to more widespread and productive prison reform.
Yeah, I can dig that. JD, what you thinking, man?
Man, this is a topic that is pretty near and dear to my heart, specifically because I haven't worked with adults in the prison system, but I've worked at a detention center with kids before. I worked for several years as a teacher. I worked for several years as a drug and substance abuse counselor. So I know and I understand the power of words. And just to think that something as simple as calling a person a resident as opposed to an inmate can mean so much to that person's psyche. Just being there with the kids, the teenagers that I work with on a daily basis, and these are like 15, 16, 17-year-old kids. So, you know, old enough to be considered adults by law, most of them. And you would be shocked at the way they felt dehumanized and downtrodden. And these are kids who aren't in prison. These are kids who are in a place to be rehabilitated. They may have gone through situations and been court ordered to be there. Some of them weren't court ordered to be there, that their parents got them in there. But the whole idea of having to go to prison or jail is dehumanizing in and of itself. As humans, we aren't meant to be placed in shackles. We aren't meant to be placed in a cage. We aren't meant to be somewhere for 23 hours a day in and 1 hour out. So the whole justice system right now is dehumanized. So I consider this to be a step in the right direction towards humanizing these people, because everything has been taken away from them. Yes, in a lot of cases, they do deserve it. In a lot of cases, they aren't safe enough to be on the streets. But as you said, Jeff, the goal of prison is to rehabilitate and reform. And I feel as though the only thing that prison does right now for 90% of the residents in there is holding them. That's it. Nothing is being accomplished. Nothing is being done. And I mean, I know that it is punishment to be held in a place against your will, pretty much. But there should be some sort of rehabilitation going on. There should be something to help these men and women become better people once they are released. And if calling them residents can mentally unlock something in them and make them feel more human and not just an animal in a cage. I can't tell you how many times I heard kids say that. Man, I'm just an animal in a cage in here. And then if you call somebody that and they believe that, they end up being that and they act like that. So if calling them residents can lead to them feeling as though they are still human beings, and it sets them in a better mindset, what does it hurt? What does it hurt? So many people are in our justice system right now, and they feel hopeless. They feel helpless. They feel as though they can't get anything done, and they're just riding out their time. So if this can be the first step, the first of many steps in order to make our prisons a better place for rehabilitation and reform, I'm all for it.
Got you, man. Very valid point. It's good that you point out the fact that you have some experience working with troubled youth, and how them being called a certain thing can have such an impact, especially when a lot of them probably feel like they don't have anything else other than their name. And with that being said, let me ask you this, JD. Do you think the term or the title resident um, is something that should be earned, or they should be called that coming into the system before the reform actually takes place?
I think a person should be called a resident upon arriving. I don't think it's something that needs to be earned, because the connotation to inmate is something that is not ending. When you think of something and someone as being a resident, or think about a nurse or a doctor when they're taking residency at a place, that's not somewhere that they're going to be forever. That's somewhere where they're at for a certain amount of time. I feel as though calling them a resident makes them feel as though, hey, I'm not going to be here forever. This is just a part of my life, as opposed to being an inmate, which to me sounds much more permanent. Like, this is where I'm at. I'm in here. I'm stuck in here for a longer and extended period of time. So I feel as though you should come in that. I mean, you shouldn't have to earn your human status. I mean, fortunately, that should be something that you were born with, even if you have been, convicted of crimes. You should still be a human at the end of the day.
I agree with you. Respect to all of those who are serving time behind the wall right now. And Jeff, you brought up the word reform. Just something that's been constantly talked about
Yeah.
year after year after year, and all these different ideas about coming to a melting pot of ideas on how to reform inmates. Do you feel like this small gesture of going from calling inmates to residents will have a small or big impact as we look towards the future when it comes to reform?
I think the impact that it will have is based upon what happens after it. If it stops here, if it's just this name change and that's pretty much all, I think I have a little bit of ripple effect. It's kind of cool, you know what I'm saying? But if there's more things that are added to this, incentives or whatever the case may be that are added to this, I think it'll have a much bigger impact. But this by itself in a vacuum, I don't think it would be super impactful in the long term. Um, Playing devil's advocate here too, I know it's challenging to talk about this and hear it if for some people who are who family members have been victims of these residents or inmates and stuff like that, who just wish nothing bad, nothing but bad upon them and ill will upon them, and do look at them as less than human or whatever the case may be. So we're speaking, I believe, from a compassionate standpoint, but I can definitely see the other end of the token where folks who've been victimized by some folks who probably wouldn't agree with this, wouldn't think that okay, they should be called residents, they are inmates because they committed a crime and they deserve to be called that, and really wallow in that. So, and that's a never ending debate too. Like when you commit a crime, first of all, there's levels to it, obviously too. You have petty crimes all the way up until murder, and I don't know if anything is worse than murder. um but and I did miss this part of the article. In this particular situation, it's these residents have committed, I'm assuming, all types of crimes, right? Like it's
Right.
not just, this is not minimum security, just misdemeanor jail, nothing like that. Yeah. So that's the one thing too. It's gonna have to kind of be a blanket thing. You know what I mean? To JD's point, unless it would be kind of absurd to earn your resident status, but I don't know, like you come in as an inmate, if you do time served, you prove that you have rehabilitated yourself. Now we'll call you a resident. I don't know. I just think that there needs to be some type of just more incentives and more situations that rehabilitate these people. I don't have a lot of answers to it, but I think that it has to be more done than just this. And the problems are at a macro level. So I think that in order to really affect change, you're going to have to do kind of sweeping things like this. Are there some people in there who people would say these are definitely not residents? They're like scum, of course. But in order to change everything, you're going to have to just make sweeping changes at a macro level. And some of the residents, most would agree that people would agree that some of these residents deserve to be called residents, and some would agree that some of them don't deserve to be called that at all. But at that point, you can't really pick and choose and say you a resident, you an inmate, you a resident, you an inmate, because that causes more division. That can do more harm than good. So,
Of course, but it may cause a certain class of
yeah,
residents
yeah,
to retaliate against inmates or vice versa.
yeah, that'll cause new gangs in the jail.
Right, inmate.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah.
You are I.
Ours versus eyes, huh?
And that would be like the equivalent of a field worker versus a house worker, if you know what I'm saying.
And some cats be like, "Hey, I'm just a resident in here, maybe." But no, seriously, shout out to all the folks that are locked behind the wall. We appreciate you. We just let you know to jump off live. We talk about all different sort of things, and not one thing is more important than the other. And so we just wanted to take the time to discuss this whole topic in regards to resident rights and reform. I definitely love to come back to this conversation at some point in the future, the jump off, once we actually see this spread across maybe multiple institutions and not just that one particular place, and let's look at the numbers and see what's produced, or if things got better from that sort of reform, from calling it inmates to residents. And so,
isn't it sort of sad that someone had to say this, and the backlash behind it has been so strong that, you know, something so simple, something so basic, that there are so many people who are against it, and so many people who feel as though these people should be dehumanized. And it's shocking, you know, where we're at as a country, and that we have all these ideals and all these things that we're supposed to stand for. And I know that you give up these rights when you decide to commit a crime, but as we said multiple times, if the goal is to get better and to eventually return to society, I don't see the harm in taking this small first step, or this, you know, maybe not first step, but this small step initially.
Yeah, I know we're going to go ahead and wrap it up too, but I would the one counterpoint I would say to what you said, JD, or not even counterpoint, just elaborate on it. We have these ideals in America, you know, but these ideals typically are manifested when it's convenient. You know what I'm saying? So, and you
right.
all in the audience know what that means. So, you know,
Yep.
love thy neighbor when it's convenient. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
If your neighbor cool, you love him. But if he ain't cool, I ain't talking to him. You know
Right.
what I'm saying? It's when it's convenient. When it's convenient for you. That's usually how it works out. It
I ain't
doesn't
talking
apply at
to
all
him.
times.
Right.
Would you
I
say?
ain't talking to him, but I talk about him.
Right. Exactly. Turn the other cheek if you're not in a fighting mood that day. You know what I'm saying? So yeah. But yeah, let your voices be heard, audience. You know, comment in the chat, let us know your thoughts on this topic. As always, tell a friend to tell a friend, like and subscribe to our channel, and continue rocking with us. And we'll definitely see you on the next episode of Jump Off Live. And peace and love.
Yes, you can catch us Mondays, Wednesdays, and
Oh, yeah.
Fridays at 8 p.m. Central Time on YouTube. Don't forget.